All right, so today is part 2 of our solving multi-step equations flipped lesson. Yesterday we talked about solving multi-step equations where you had to add like expressions or combine like terms. And today we're going to deal with the problems that involve the distributive property. So let me quickly go through what you learned yesterday. We talked very quickly about, we reviewed very quickly on how to combine like terms. Remember, I always like to use shapes when I'm highlighting my like terms to separate them. We can only add or combine like terms that have the same variable with the same exponent. So we reviewed that yesterday in the flipped lesson. We also reviewed how to solve two-step equations by using inverse operations. Sometimes our solutions come out to be integers, and sometimes they end up being mixed numbers, like in this one. And here are some of the problems that we talked about yesterday. Combine like terms so that we then have a two-step equation to solve, which at this point should be easy, and so on. And then I had you try 4 problems on your own. Here was number 1, where we combined positive 5x and negative 2x to give us a two-step equation of 3x plus 6 equals 21, and then we solve from there. And then number 2 from yesterday, we combine like terms, 6x and a negative 1x. Remember, when we have a variable without a number in front, there really is. It is a 1, we just don't typically write it. And if you're going to circle like terms like I'm doing, you need to take the sign in front. And if you're not going to do that, then you need to make sure that you add the opposite so that you can see when we have numbers or coefficients that are negative. So in number 2, we ended up with a two-step equation after we combine like terms, and then solve, and we have a solution of x equals 5. And then we had number 3, same kind of thing. Remember, if you don't feel comfortable with the letters being on the right-hand side, you can rewrite the original problem. Just make sure that you write it correctly. And what I mean by that is that, let me back up for a second here. What I mean by that is this whole thing goes over on this side. Don't write it backwards. We're just moving that whole thing over to the other side in the same order that it was. And then we're taking that and we're moving it on this side. So don't write it backwards. And I'm bringing that up because I saw a few of you do that yesterday. But regardless of that fact, combine like terms and then solve your two-step equation. Today we go into the second half of this lesson where we are using the distributive property. So here is a problem where we would have to use this distributive property. We state this problem as 6 times the quantity of y minus 2 equals 60. Let me write that down really quickly, what I just said. 6 times the quantity. Anytime we use those two words, the quantity, that means we're using parentheses, of y minus 2 is equal to 60. 6 times the quantity of y minus 2, and I left out the time, the s there. 6 times the quantity, so 6 times the quantity of y minus 2 is equal to 60. So when I say words like that, that is exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to get rid of the parentheses. Well, that is one of the reasons why we have this property titled the distributive property. And we have worked on a lot of problems where we've used the distributive property in regular class and in intervention class. So the first thing that we need to do is to get rid of the parentheses. I have lines or arrows drawn underneath, but I think in class we've tried to do it like this. So we have 6 times y, which is 6y, and the step that some of you tend to forget, we have 6 times 2, which is 12, and it was subtraction. So 6y minus 12 equals 60. Now we have a simple two-step equation to solve. We add 12 to both sides, and remember, adding 12 is the inverse operation to subtracting 12, or we're looking to make sure that these two things are opposites of each other, or the other way was trying to recognize the fact that we're trying to make 0 on the side with the variable. So once we do that, we have 6y equals 72, and then the inverse operation to multiplying is dividing, so we're going to divide both sides by 6. We made our 1 right there, and so y is equal to 12. The solution is y equals 12 because 72 divided by 6, 6 goes into 72 evenly. We don't need to do long division for that one. All right, so one more time. We use the distributive property. That gives us 6y minus 12 equals 60. We add 12 to both sides. That gives us 6y equals 72. We divide both sides by 6, and we get a solution of y equals 12. Everybody try number 5. And make sure that you are trying it. Before you try it, pause the video, then unpause it when you are finished. Okay, let's take a look at this. First of all, if we have the variable on the right-hand side. If you don't like it being over there, then let's take this whole thing and let's just move it over there. We don't write it backwards. We would rewrite it like this. And take the 16 and move it over here. It's always okay to do that as long as you're doing things in the right order. So if you chose to do it like that, that's fine. Now we have 4 times m is 4m, and 4 times 4 is 16. It is a subtraction problem, and that is equal to 16. From there, we would do the inverse operation to subtracting 16, which is adding 16. Or remember, the check to that is making sure that these are opposites or that they make 0. They do, and we have 4m equals 16 plus 16 is 32. And then the inverse operation to multiplying is to divide, so let's divide both sides by 4. We've made our 1. That is the multiplicative inverse property. 4 goes into 32 evenly, so the solution is m equals 8. Now, if you left it the way it was, it doesn't look any different. It's just that things are on opposite sides. So use the distributive property, add 16 to both sides. We made our 0. We have 32 equals 4m. Divide both sides by 4. And the solution is m equals 8. All right, pause this video and try number 6. Now, the difference with number 6 is it's a combination of the two things that we've done the last 2 days. In other words, you're going to have to use the distributive property, and then after that, you are going to have to combine like terms. But whatever you do, do not multiply the 3 by that. The reason is because that is not in, the x is not in parentheses. You only multiply the 3 by the x and the 12, not the x. Okay, go ahead and give it a shot. Pause the video. All right, let's take a look at this problem. First thing we need to do is to use the distributive property so that we can get rid of the parentheses. So 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 12 is 36. And remember, we didn't multiply the 3 by the negative x because it's not in the parentheses. And notice that I also went ahead and put a 1 in front of the x. From there, these are the problems that we talked about yesterday. Combine like terms. That gives us 2x. So we now have a two-step equation of 2x plus 36 equals 8. Subtract 36 from both sides. We made our 0, or we used inverse operations, however you want to think about that. And we have 2x equals negative 28 because many of you can do this part in your head, but some of you still need to add the opposite, which is fine. We have 28 more negatives than we do positives in that situation right there. Now the inverse operation to multiplying is dividing, and we end up with x equals negative 14 for the solution. All right. Pause this video and try number 7. Okay, number 7 is much like number 6. The first thing that we need to do is to use the distributive property. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. We do not multiply the, let me back up for a second. We do not multiply the 2 by the 20 because the 20 is not in parentheses. Now we have common terms right here. The negative 8 and the negative 20, those are like terms because they are constants. And constants don't have variables, so they are numbers without variables. That would give us 2x minus 28 equals 32. Now it's a simple two-step equation. Add 28 to both sides, and then divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals 30. So the solution is x equals 30. Okay, so now we're going to deal with the language objective for this lesson, and that's turning words into math, if you want to think of it that way. So number 8 reads like this. It says 6 times the quantity. And remember, in the very first problem today, I stated the fact that times the quantity means you're going to use parentheses. So 6 times the quantity of y minus 2 is 60. 6 times the quantity of y minus 2 equals 60. Well, as it turns out, it should look like this. 6 times the quantity of y minus 2 is, in math, a lot of times means equals, and then 60. From there, we solve it. So I would like you to pause the video and solve this equation. All right, let's take a look at this. We have to use the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. We end up with 6y minus 12 equals 60. Add 12 to both sides. That's the inverse operation to subtracting 12. And then inverse operation to multiplying by 6 is dividing by 6. And the solution is y equals 12. Everybody try number 9. Pause the video, write the equation, and then solve it. All right, let's take a look at this one. We have 8, so 8 times the quantity, so that means we're going to use parentheses, of w plus 9 is, in math, a lot of times means equals, and then 16. From there, you solve it like we've solved other problems today. 8 times w plus 8 times 9 is equal to 16. Then we have to subtract 72 from both sides. We end up with 8w equals negative 56. Divide both sides by 8, and the solution is w equals negative 7. That is it for today. Go ahead and continue working on your X problems.